Hello. This is me on. I don't even know what episode this is, honestly. Maybe the 17th, 18th. But yeah, I'm back. I was just on spring break last week. This episode is going to be a little bit different, more impromptu, unplanned, just a story time kind of thing. So I don't know if this will be 10 minutes or 30 minutes, but I'm going to assume somewhere in between. Um, I'll get into it. But basically, I was on spring break last week. Went to the Bahamas with a big group. It was 11 of us. Wasn't like a spring break through our school or anything. It was like we had planned it. We were between a few different spots. We ultimately landed on Bahamas, which I'm definitely glad we did. And we got a good deal. It was not too expensive, and I'm glad that we did it. I mean, it's our last spring break. I'm a senior, so yeah. I mean, this is it, and it was the perfect week. It was Monday to Friday, so it was a short spring break, but it felt awesome, and it was the perfect experience. I'll give a quick recap on all like the cool things, the real experience. I mean, the title of this episode will give it away a little bit, but I'll explain how we got there. Basically, on the actual vacation, it was awesome. Just relaxing on the beach. We snorkeled. We saw sea turtles. We went out to dinner. The sea turtles were very cool. We fed pigs on an island. Also very cool. It was perfect. We were staying literally 10 seconds from the water. So nice, so easy. Everything was pleasant. But yeah, I'll get into the story because the story actually starts once we check out of the Airbnb. So 10 a.m. on Friday. We had a flight scheduled for 6:45 p.m. It was just the best flight that we could get. Best, cheapest. Honestly, cheapest is the best word for it. Um, and so obviously the plan then is we'd be home for. I think it had us getting home at like midnight, so it was still a lot. Um, but that was the plan. Um, so and then we had a taxi scheduled for like 3:30. We spent the day just. I mean, it wasn't the warmest day, so we were considering going in the pool. We kind of were just hanging out by the pool and like seats around. Wasn't an issue. We just like relaxed. We ate lunch at one point, and then just hung around the pool, took naps. Very chill, very relaxed, just kind of killing time. Um, then we get picked up by the taxi. We check into the airport. Everything's smooth. We're walking around the airport. We're sitting by our gate, waiting to eat food before our flight. Then our flight gets its first delay, like a 10 minute, whatever. But the flight was a 6:45 to Miami, and then it was like an hour window, hour and a half window, and then to from Miami to JFK at 9:30. So like a 90-minute layover. We continued to get a series of 5 to 10 minute delays. Or not 5 to 10 minutes, like five different like 10 to 20 to 30 minute delays. And it just like it just hits that point where we're like, this is a disaster. Like this is bad. Because we're nervous about the connecting flight, obviously. So we hit the point where we're like, all right, we don't know if we're gonna make the Miami flight, so we need to find a worker in the airport because there's no one at our gate right now. They're just making these announcements from the heavens, and then no one's at the gate because they don't want to be confronted. So we're like, all right, we'll look around the airport, see if there's another American worker. So we find the JetBlue terminal, and we're asked like, oh, do you know where we could find some American Airlines workers? They tell us the gate. We walk over to the gate, empty, nobody there. There's zero American Airlines worker in the entire airport after multiple sweeps of the place, and it's getting to the point where like there should be someone there. Then I'm not sure when, but this was like after a bunch of delays. We were kind of just like, okay, this is a disaster. Um, we get emails. It's 10 of us at the airport, each placing us onto different flights. At least like within like the groups that booked. So like me and Jules were together, then the other couples were together. But it was placing on flights like varying from like the best flight that was given to one of my friends was like an 8 a.m. flight to Charlotte and then to JFK. At first, we were thought that he would have the worst one because we were like, oh my gosh, like going to Charlotte, it was like a little bit of a layover than JFK. Some people had like 12-hour layover, like 8-hour layovers. Then me and Jules ended up with the worst one, a 3:34 p.m. flight. So the following day to Orlando, and then a 7 p.m. flight to LaGuardia. These were all terrible, and we were all split up, and we didn't even know if the Bahamas flight was gonna exist because it just kept getting delayed. Um, we were just like, this got to the point where we were just like, we were laughing about it because how ridiculous it was and how awful it was turning out. Um, but yeah, I mean, we were split up, which sucks. Then right before boarding, a worker finally appears. This massive line forms. We get online. We get to talk to him. Obviously, like, we weren't expecting much, but we just wanted to be like, what can you do? He said, there's nothing he can do. There's nothing that he can possibly do. Um, we just have to get. He just said we need to get to Miami, and then he said we'll be boarding in a few. You guys get to Miami, just talk to the front desk. They'll help you out, and you'll be all set. We're like, okay, sounds good. So obviously, there's nothing we can do there. We board, take a quick flight to Miami. It's 45 minutes, an hour. As we are landing, we see our flight to JFK getting taxied. So sad, so tragic that literally if it was 20 minutes faster, we would have made it. And the flight had no issues. Like, while when we were in the air, there was no issues. Obviously, there seemed to be some weather things. But like 15, 20 minutes and we would have been able to rush to our gate. There were people on that flight that, on the Miami flight that we were on, that like, as we were landing, they were like, we have 2 minutes to get to our next flight. I was like, there's just no way you're making it, but I'm glad you tried. I don't know if they ended up making it. But yeah, so we get off the plane and we have no idea where to go. Luckily, like, because like we were kind of split up amongst the planes, so some of them got to the right spot and got online. We didn't know where to go, my half, so we thought we had to go through like the SkyTrain thing. We ended up not having to, and then we had to go back down. So basically, we killed like 5 or 10 minutes. So then we ended up getting to the area, the gate where like the customer service thing is, at like 9:15. 9:15 p.m. for just so you know, and there's a massive line. Like probably, I'm estimating like 80 plus families easily. I mean, it's probably between 60 and 80, 90 families. Um, so we're not expecting to get a new flight or anything. We're just like, okay, we'll get in line and we'll get a hotel because we have a flight at 3:23 p.m. We're like, what are we gonna do until then? After an hour of waiting, there's just been no progress made. Like we've gone up like a few places, still sucks. Then they decide to make an announcement that there are no more hotels available. Even though obviously when we check and look online, there's hotels available, but they say like, oh, there's no hotels available, but we'll like give you, like we'll cover a hotel up to $100 a night. The hotels are like 200, 250 a night, so obviously not going to do that. So we're just like, all right, we'll keep waiting online. While we're in line, we call customer service, and they say, oh, we'll just send you the website to book the hotel because there's some available. We hang up, check the website. We shouldn't have hung up, but unfortunately we were like, okay, we're all set. Website says no websites available. So basically they were just trying to push us off the phone, which is fair, because I'm sure they were getting attacked with calls. We continued waiting, knowing that we were in shambles. Like there was nothing that we could really do, but we were just like, we might as well wait in line. Like the best shot is talking to someone in person. We checked the American Airlines app because one of our friends, his brother was calling him trying to help him out, and he was like, I just went on the app and there's flights available. So he had booked him onto a different flight. So we were like, okay, we'll check the app. We got onto a flight at 12 p.m. flight, so 3 hours better to Indianapolis, or maybe it was 11 a.m., something like that, like in that area. The flight was to Indianapolis and then JFK. We didn't realize that we found out that it had a terrible layover. Like it was like land at, I think it was 11 a.m. flight, and it was something like land at like 1, and then the next flight is at like 1:35. So it was like a layover where like if there's one delay, we're screwed. But we didn't even realize that. At that point, we were like, all right, we have a better flight. We're good. Then I think this might have been before, but customer service also offered us a flight to Chicago. Like it was Chicago, and then like so it was like an 8-hour flight, plus layovers. But by like I think it's like 11:30 p.m. It finally hits our turn. And this man at the customer service desk saved our lives, at least as much as he could. So obviously there were 0 hotels, but he somehow gets us onto a 7 a.m. flight that didn't even exist on the apps. Because, okay, so the Indianapolis flight that we were looking at, like, it let us book it and get onto it without paying any extra, but it said that there were no seats available. So we were just a little bit confused. But he sneaks us onto this 7 a.m. flight to Orlando, then to LaGuardia, not JFK, but doesn't really matter for us. We take it, and then we get meal vouchers, but we have to like relinquish our hotel, like our spot in line at the hotels, even though there were no hotels. We had to relinquish them to get the meal vouchers because we knew that we weren't going to get them, and he said that we weren't going to get them. Because he told us about he said the Indianapolis flight, like, first you said the Indianapolis flight, the layover, you're not going to make it, like, it's a bad idea. We were like, okay, yeah, that makes sense. Then we, what else? He said that we also had booked a straight flight from LaGuardia at like 6 p.m. and we were like, don't remember doing that. But he's like, all right, I'll get rid of those. Then he somehow, like, I don't even know how he did it because he just like found it. He was like, just give me a second. And he just like we're just like 5 minutes in silence. We're just like praying. And then he just like, okay, got you on a 7 a.m. flight, got you 2 seats, got you like, it was very just like weird that he got it. He got us next to each other's seats. Don't know how they do it. It definitely made me realize like customer service, especially for like this situation, is like being nice to them really helps because there were people that were waiting and yelling at them and we're not getting anything, and we were like pretty in and out compared to other people. Got everything we wanted, just we're just like nice and normal and joking around and being lighthearted, and even though the situation was terrible. So I mean, it definitely was a lesson, and maybe if I can tie this into the podcast theme, it would be like that, like being nice is so much easier, and just like even if you are annoyed at the person, even if the person's being rude, like just killing them with niceness, and like because going with negativity just will never make things move faster and will never make things easier. There was people, we saw them yelling and crashing out and screaming and throwing things at them. I'm like, if you start throwing things at someone that has your whole like your fate, at least like fate in, as in like your happiness for the next 48 hours, then you just have to be nice. Because we also, this is going back a little bit, we found out that some people had been put on a flight. So we thought ours was bad for like Saturday at 3 p.m. Some people got put on for Monday to go to JFK. Like, how was that even possible? Don't even know. But yeah, so back to Arturo. He gets us on the 7 a.m. flight. We take it. We get some meal vouchers. We have no place to sleep, but we know we'll be flying out in the morning, which is all we could really hope for. We go to retrieve our luggage. Luckily, one of our friends, Tomas, had grabbed our luggage. One of our friends' luggages wasn't available. Like, he just wasn't there. But they went and like Tomas and figured out his flight. Then we head back through security. It was just like funny because we were like going to security at like, I don't even know, like 12:30 maybe. We meet back up with everybody because some of them didn't have to go back through security because they already had their bags. Because the bags were like, we had to be checked because we were like the lowest on the totem pole. Our carry-ons had to be checked. We meet back everyone to hunt for food because they were told that Subway and Dunkin' were open 24/7. So we walked for 30, 45 minutes. Both of them were closed. We find out the only open ones are pre-security, so we couldn't go back. Or at least maybe now, thinking back, maybe we could have, but we just were like, all right, we give up. We were defeated. We sat at a random gate and kind of just hung out for a little bit. Then we're like, all right, it's time. We need to hunt for some sleep. So we're like, from what I looked up, there were some couches somewhere. We searched for probably 30 minutes, maybe 45 minutes. There's no food. We find a cake vending machine, and we're like, oh my gosh, maybe we'll use the vouchers. We get up there, does not take vouchers. So unfortunate. We were so excited. It was a disaster. The cakes were like $15 a slice. We're like, all right, we're not spending real money on this. Because the voucher is like this like paper thing that you just like, we find out you just have to hand to the cashier. So obviously we were trying to shove it inside of the cake machine. We were trying to scan it. Nothing worked. Couldn't find any couches. Just kept searching and searching and searching, and just eventually we kind of gave up. We were like, barely able to walk from tiredness at like 2:30 ish. We finally lay down. It might have been 2. We finally lay down in like a pretty empty gate, and just like we set up our little like fort of like pillows made out of clothes, and like some of us were like under the benches and between the benches, and me and Jules were just like in the middle of the gate. We just did not care. Um, After a few minutes, we of us trying to sleep, we hear someone watching TikTok at full volume in the gate. Then we hear someone watching Madagascar. We hear a vacuum, but we're all just too defeated, and we're done. We just laid down and just sat through it. We threw on some white noise between us, and then this was just. I mean, like just think. I mean, just think of this. Think of it was like 8 of us were sleeping in this gate. Like just like 8 people sleeping on the floor in a gate. It was the rock bottom of the trip, and the trip had been so fun up to this point that it felt like this was like evening it out and being like, this is the terrible part of it. Um yeah, I mean, we were just dead. Like I'm not good at sleeping in these situations, especially like cuz I'm a very paranoid person. So I was first of all I was like, all right, like when we're sleeping we need to like hook our arm around our bags, and like obviously we just kind of had to lay our suitcases out. There's nothing we could really do about that. Um, but yeah, I mean, we had given up. Like we were like clutching our bags. Me and Jules, we were using a sack of clothes as our pillows, and then used some like one of her dresses or like skirts to just cover our heads to black out all the light. It was also freezing in there, like super freezing. Like one of my friends was wearing 4 shirts. We were a motley crew of disasterness. Um, and then probably got like, I think I got a half hour sleep. My watch says I got an hour and a half. I don't buy that. But then waking up is the funniest part. It was the most humbling experience of my entire life. Um, it we the one that we randomly chose after wandering forever, that we were just like, all right, we'll just go here. Um, was the one with a flight boarding at 5 o'clock in the morning. So we got up at 4:30, woken up by a screaming baby crying, so loud, to people like we were. I don't even know how to properly describe this, but like we were just like laying on the floor, sprawled across like a 20-foot area of the gate with like a bunch of seats that we were just like directly under, or like between, um, and we just like wake up to like imagine just like waking up after sleeping on an airport floor like a monster, and just seeing people like ready for their flight, like put together and ready for just like growling creatures that are just waking up like zombies coming out of a grave. Just people sitting around us looking homeless and scary. One of my friends, John, was like sitting on a stool trying to sleep because I guess he couldn't sleep well laying down. Um, Nate, one of my friends, was like sleeping like between the two like seat, like there's like the rows of seats like that are like back to back, and Nate was like under and between it because we shifted it a little bit because he wanted some coverage. Um, and I just like when I woke up, I just got to see like Nate like rustling. The guy was like right in front of us, like 5 feet away from us, and I just see the guy just like sitting at his chair, not realizing that Nate, like a Nate looking homeless, is under him asleep, and Nate like rustles a little bit and starts to get up, and the guy's like spooked and like jumps, and it was just I don't know, just everything was so funny at this point that I just started dying laughing, and I was like, this is this is where we're at right now. Like Nate is getting up, spooking someone from his slumber under them. And it was just like it was a point of delirium, and we were just like walking around just literally dying laughing at everything, just dead, like just not feeling it. um but I mean that's like the majority of the story. We went and we hunted down some Dunkin' for breakfast, found out it was a Dunkin' Express, so so only coffee. We finally found food at a bagel place, very mediocre. And then we got on our flight at 7, after a disastrous morning. and our flights all went well. I mean, we got to Orlando, then it was like a 2 hour, 2.5 hour layover. We were just like sitting there like zombies, just laughing at all the jokes that happened, um, all the funny things. Um, um, yeah, I mean, just like kind of recapping and just saying all the funny things that happened and all the stupid things that happened, and uh, just like the bonding of an adventure that we experienced. Because we will never forget this moment, that whole night. Um, but yeah, we got on our flight, and then me and Jules got back around probably 3 p.m. So when we were back, I looked at the clock and it was like 3:20, and I was like, "This is the time that we would be just boarding our first flight to Orlando." Like, that is ridiculous. Like, it made me so like annoyed with just the airline industry as a whole, and I already don't like flying, so I hope to very I hope to never fly. Like, I feel like I could never fly again, and I would be happy. But obviously, I will at some point. Um, but yeah, I mean, that's the majority of that's kind of everything. I There's one funny like addition to it that like um so that night we were watching Severance, the finale, with my family. And we like paused at one point so we could like pee. And so I stand up and start to walk, and my entire left leg is fully asleep, like 100%. Like, it feels like I'm an amputee and I don't have a leg. So the culmination of this night, or the culmination of this whole like disastrous experience, is just me getting up, taking a step with my right foot. I'm like, obviously not thinking of anything because I'm like, okay, I'm just walking. Taking my left foot and just imagine you just don't even have a left leg. Like, I take the step and there's just nothing there, and I crumble and I just fall onto the ground. And I'm just like, how, like, what is happening? Like, this is the most insane experience ever. I just am sprawled on the ground. The culmination of everything was me just sprawled on the ground in front of my living room, in front of my whole family, just dead. Um, and, and that's really the end of the story. That's kind of, yeah. I mean, I'm trying to see, is there any other little funny moments? I mean, yeah. I mean, obviously we were split all over the country between all of us. A lot of rage at the airport. The airport's a stressful place. Um, yeah. I think that's all I got. This was like 23 minutes. Yeah. I mean, just looking forward on the podcast. I'm gonna get some more interviews. I have an interview scheduled for Friday. Hopefully that stands with one of my professors. I'm gonna send out some feelers to other professors to see if I can um, book them. Sounds weird to say, but get them on the podcast. I'm also gonna try and figure out how to get the phone call to to be able to make phone calls, like remote podcasts. Gonna try and figure that out. Because I want to send out some feelers, and then it'll give me more options to get some reps in for guests. Want to try and maybe do an episode every Friday at least. So those are my off days. And yeah, I mean, my goal is, I mean, just in general, is I want to just enjoy this last semester and not pressure myself too much with this, but I want to get episodes out, and because I do enjoy it, and I hope this episode was fun. I hope you laughed maybe once, or at least are just like, wow, like, what the hell happened? But yeah, just gonna try and get more guests on. Just gonna get more podcast episodes going. My running, I didn't really get much running in this past week. I kind of needed a recovery week anyway. But I do need to get back after it this week if I want to be in shape for running 50 miles. But yeah, yeah, my fitness has definitely fallen a little bit. I've had two very very small weeks. I was supposed to run 50 miles last week, and I ran like 20, maybe less. But yeah, I mean, these next couple of weeks I'll be having to peak, so I'm hopefully getting like 60 plus miles in this week, and then the next couple of weeks, and then hopefully running early May. I think I explained the idea of the run, but basically I was originally going to do a race, decided against it, just because I couldn't really run trails because I was running pavement all summer, or all winter. So I'm gonna just run 50 miles like in like a repeated loop near my school. But yeah, that's all I got. If you made it this far, thank you. I appreciate you. And I'm just gonna keep grinding away at the podcast and keep trying to make myself better, and just always being aware that you could be dead soon. It's real, and gotta always keep that in the back of your mind. Yeah, thank you so much for watching. Bye bye.